All right, welcome to this explainer. Let's just jump right in because we have a truly wild story today. Picture this. It's Japan, 1979. The economy is absolutely booming. Cities are modernizing left and right. But beneath all those bright neon lights, a terrifying rumor is starting to brew. And this wasn't just a spooky campfire story. It evolved into a very real national crisis. Today, we're going to look at how a single ghost story literally brought an entire country to a standstill. So it all started with three incredibly simple words. Am I pretty? Just imagine for a second that you're walking home alone in the dark. The streets are kind of foggy, and suddenly, a strange woman wearing a surgical mask steps right out of the shadows and asks you that exact question. That spine-chilling hook right there, that was the spark that set off a nationwide panic. And look, I am not exaggerating when I say panic. In the spring and summer of 1979, a ghost literally shut down schools across Japan. The real-world stakes here were incredibly high. We're talking police being dispatched on official patrols in places like Fukushima and Kanagawa. Teachers were actually forced to escort kids home in these huge groups. You had terrified parents locking their children inside for weeks on end, refusing to let them out to play. All of this because of a phantom.
Section 1. Anatomy of a Monster. Let's break down the lore of this slit-mouthed woman.
Meet the kuchisake onna, which roughly translates to the slit-mouth woman. She's categorized as an onuro, which is a vengeful Japanese spirit. According to all the playground whispers at the time, she appears as a beautiful woman in her 20s. Pale skin, long dark hair, and she wears a large surgical mask. Now, masks were already super common in Japan for catching colds, so she blended right in. She was also famously known for wearing a long red coat. And why red? Well, the grim rumor was that it was to hide the blood of her victims. Now, the trap she sets follows a very specific, totally terrifying method. Step 1. She approaches a kid and asks, "Am I pretty?" Step 2. The victim usually says yes because, well, she looks pretty normal and beautiful with the mask on. Step 3. She rips off the mask to reveal a mouth that's literally sliced open from ear to ear. Step 4. She screams, "How about now?" And here is the catch. If you say no, she immediately attacks you with a sickle. Or actually sometimes scissors, depending on who you asked. But if you say yes, she uses that sickle to slice your mouth to look just like hers. So, yeah, there was seemingly no right answer. But children are resourceful. To survive this impossible situation, they developed a bizarrely specific survival guide. If you ran into her, you were supposed to yell "pomade" 3 times. Because supposedly, the doctor who botched her face wore really smelly hair wax and she hated it. You could also throw beko ame, a type of hard candy she apparently loved, just to distract her. Or you could answer her question with so-so to confuse her long enough to run away. Other rules said you could yell, "There's a dog coming," since she hated dogs, or just run up to the 2nd floor of any building because she allegedly couldn't climb stairs. Oh, and my personal favorite, she apparently wouldn't attack you if you had O-type blood. Kids literally walked around with pockets completely stuffed with hard candy, just in case.
Section 2. Tracing the origins. Where exactly did she come from?
So she wasn't entirely a new invention. We can actually map out historical breadcrumbs going back centuries. In 1754, right after a peasant uprising in Gifu, local folklore talked about a skull pulled from a river with a mouth torn from ear to ear. In 1801, an Edo period picture book depicted a slit-mouthed courtesan terrifying a man. Fast forward to the mid-1970s, and these whispers were already sort of circulating in local schools. But the modern ground zero happened in December 1978. In a rural farming village, an elderly woman stepped out into her garden late at night and claimed she saw a woman with a slit mouth just standing in the shadows. A local paper printed this odd little story, and boom, the match was lit. Within months, the rumor completely caught fire. By the summer of 1979, an estimated 99% of Japanese children knew her name. I mean, really think about that statistic for a second. We're talking about a time way before the internet, before social media, and yet an obscure local ghost story managed a 99% saturation rate across an entire nation's youth. That is just mind-blowing. And then the fear leaped right off the playground and into the real world. On June 21, 1979, police arrested a 25-year-old woman who had actually dressed up as the kuchisake onna, complete with a knife, just to play a prank on people. The panic was so intense that it started inspiring real-world copycats. Suddenly, the line between a spooky urban legend and a genuine physical threat was completely erased. Section 3. The Perfect Storm. why did this specific rumor explode the way it did?
Let's look at the reality behind the myth. On one side, sure, we have the supernatural fear, a ghostly woman hunting kids. But on the other side, we have a very real societal fear. In the late 70s, Japan's economy was surging, and juku, these private after-school cram academies, became the absolute norm for middle-class families. So suddenly, you have an entire generation of kids leaving regular school, going to juku, and then walking home alone at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. They're navigating these dark, unfamiliar city streets filled with strange adults, drunk businessmen, nightlife workers. The ghost story was really just a projection of a very real, growing anxiety about children's safety in a rapidly modernizing world. But it wasn't just the kids. Adults threw absolute gasoline on this fire. Japan's newly established national infrastructure, so telephones, cars, TVs in almost every home, meant that a rumor could travel at lightning speed. Major weekly magazines ran massive features on her. And here's the really wild part. Professional journalists actually started inventing new lore. They printed that she could run 100 meters in 3 seconds, that she had fox eyes, or even a cat's voice. None of that existed until adult reporters literally made it up to sell magazines. Late-night radio hosts were broadcasting supposed sightings. The media was happily building this monster in real time.
And there's a really profound twist here. The panic didn't spread just because kids are gullible. It spread because the trusted adults in their lives completely validated it. Think about it. When your teacher tells you that you have to walk home in a group, when your parents start locking you indoors, and when the actual Ministry of Education proposes official countermeasures for a ghost, you aren't going to question if she's real, right? The adults' panic basically screamed to the children, yes, this is real.
Section 4. The Real Monster. Unmasking the Fear.
As abruptly as she arrived, she was just gone. In August of 1979, Japanese schools closed for summer vacation. Kids were no longer hanging out in the schoolyards or walking home from cram schools together. The rumor network was instantly severed, and almost overnight, the ghost vanished. She wasn't caught by the police. She ceased to exist simply because the flow of playground information, which was the true lifeblood of the entire panic, just stopped. What we are really looking at here is a textbook case of mass hysteria. It's a phenomenon where we, as humans, process fear through community and social cues, rather than, logic. If everyone around you is running, the evolutionary survival move is to run first and ask questions later. This isn't just some quirky local story. It's the exact same human wiring that caused 500,000 people to believe Martians were invading during that 1938 War of the Worlds radio broadcast, or even the dancing plague of 1518. It is a fundamental human survival trait. So the ultimate takeaway here is that the real fear was never a vengeful spirit with a sickle. The fear was a society's profound loss of control over their children's safety in a rapidly urbanizing world. The monster was just a costume for that anxiety. And once you find the real societal fear that's wearing the costume, the monster loses all its power. I want to leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought. Today, we don't need a playground rumor mill. We have the internet, where unverified information spreads globally in seconds. When you see a terrifying story go viral before anyone can even fact-check it, ask yourself, what real societal fear is wearing the monster's costume today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and stay curious.